Hi there, this is Brett Senkis, the Right Brain Business Attorney, and this is another video in our series about mastering your business partnerships. So today, I'm going to give you a tiny little clause, some words to insert into your founder or partnership agreement, and these words will go a long way towards keeping you and your partner in sync. I promise you, you're not going to find these words, this clause, in any other agreement you're going to find. So you've heard about alternative dispute resolution, probably, things like mediation and arbitration. There's a section of just about every business contract, including partner and founder agreements, that talks about those things. It talks about what the parties are going to do if things go wrong, if they have a dispute. And they'll also often talk about, here's where we'll fight things out in court, or we will mediate, or we will arbitrate. So mediation and arbitration are alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, or ADR. Now this clause is called BDR, and it stands for beer dispute resolution. So well before you get to the point where you've got something that you've got to bring to third parties, so a mediator that you have to pay to referee a dispute, or arbitration, which if you've heard me talk about is just really in many cases as expensive and time consuming as litigation. It's no real great alternative. I mean, it can be under certain circumstances, but generally it's not. And in either case, in both those cases, things have escalated to the point where you have to get third parties involved. It's gotten bad. Well before you get to that point, you can take advantage of my beer dispute resolution clause. And what that looks like, in a dispute resolution section of a contract, we generally build a cascade where each stage is a little bit more time and a little bit more money and a little bit more effort to try and resolve the dispute. So sometimes before we go into mediation or arbitration or litigation, there will be something I call formal resolution meeting, which is one of the parties sends out to the other or others, whoever the dispute is with, and says, look, we got a problem. I'm formally starting the process of dispute resolution under the contract. And the first piece is, I call it formal resolution meeting only because it's not an informal, hey, by the way, we have a problem. It's like, we're going to make time at this particular time, we're going to get together and we're going to talk about these things. We're going to try and work through our problem. And it's just the founders, just the people involved in the dispute, no attorneys. And if they can't figure things out in that meeting, then the cascade moves on. I mean, they move to the next stage, which is mediation, arbitration, or something. So beer dispute resolution, though, it would typically be before formal dispute resolution meeting. Okay, before formal resolution meeting. And how this works is, if there's two 50-50 founders who can't break a stalemate, they can't decide what to do, the idea, and you can build it right into a contract, there's no reason you can't put this in there, and I think it's an excellent thing. And by the way, wine, whiskey, hiking, yoga, I mean, it doesn't matter. The point here is you're trying to take something that is fundamentally relational, right, which is your partnership, and you're trying to give it context of relationship. It doesn't mean it's not going to be important and serious, you're not going to work through big things, but you don't want it to be in the confines of attorneys, or even the formal resolution meeting I'm talking about is kind of a very formal thing. This is meant to head things off before that, and to get you back to a point where everyone can be more relaxed and work through things. So in beer dispute resolution, you would say, if we get to the point where you and I each own 50% of this company, and we're each 50% owners, we get to the point where we have a stalemate, we agree we're going to meet off-site, we're going to meet at our favorite bar, we're going to have a beer, and we're going to talk about the problem. You can also use it if your co-founder owns 80% and you own 20%. Say, whenever you're making a decision, you'll give me at least a day to weigh in on that decision. Right? I would hope that they do this anyway, but if something is majority voting rules, meaning 51% is all that's needed to take an action, if you have an 80% owner, or anything more than a 51% owner, they don't really need the other owner to weigh in. They should, right? But so what you would say is, I need to weigh in on every decision. I understand you can make some without me. If you're going to make a decision against what I'd like to do, you'll agree to meet with me, to get a beer, have a glass of wine, get out of the office, and for me to really explain my position. Again, the point isn't what you're drinking, it's not where you're going, other than you're not in the office environment, and it's just the people with the dispute in a very relational context, relaxed, informal, but serious enough to talk things through and to hear each other and remember why they're in business together anyway. So business is fundamentally about relationships. And yes, it's business, so at a certain point in time, that's important to recognize. I don't do things for you just because I like you, in business, but I respect you and I want to hear from you, and it's good to be reminded of that. And so it's good to build something into the contract that takes things out of the formal scope of the dispute resolution cascade. So there you have it. It's called beer dispute resolution. You can call it wine dispute resolution. You can call it hiking dispute resolution. It doesn't matter. The point is, get out of the office, formally build it into the agreement when it would be triggered, when we have a disagreement, when we have a stalemate, when you make a decision that I don't agree with, whatever it is. It shouldn't be something that's triggered every day. Yeah, I mean, you might like to drink beer every day, but that's a lot of talking through issues. But it is a good way to head things off before they get any more before they become a bigger problem. And if it's a stalemate, you got to figure it out. But if it's just that the owner who owns 60% has made a decision without, really paying a lot of attention to the 40% or really hearing the 40%'s view, this is a good way to make sure that in the right environment, they're hearing what your concerns are, or you're hearing what your partner's concerns are. So again, fundamentally, it's about that relationship and what brought you together for the first time. And you've probably heard me talk about how it's good to get off-site and do these things anyway. And I don't mean with the whole company. I mean, that's great to have picnics and stuff like that, but just with your co-founders and partners, to be in an environment that's other than work, to get to know each other, to sync up, to remember why you're doing this, to understand the other's point of view generally. And this is kind of a different twist on that in a slightly different context. So would love to hear what you think about it. If you've tried anything like it, if it works for you. Mediation, arbitration, we kind of just touched on, but people have a lot of thoughts about those. So if you have one, drop a line to me. If you've got questions, if you want specific language, give me a call and we'll work through it.